Hello, this is David Larson. Welcome to Once and Future Church. There's been a lot of talk online recently about, whether there should be a line drawn. For example, like William F. Buckley back in the 60s drew a line to keep out the John Birch Society, who is kind of conspiratorial, anti-Semitic people on the right. And so there was kind of a line drawn. And, the mainstream right, called the Fusionists, the three-legged stool, kind of a Reagan coalition formed. And that's been pretty consistent. But right now there's kind of questions about that. So Matt Walsh, some people are pressuring him to kind of draw one of those lines. Both sides of this divide want Matt Walsh on their side. Seth Dillon, he's, the Babylon Bee guy, he wrote in the Free Press, I thought it was a pretty good article, saying, Matt Walsh has said that there's no enemies to the right, basically. We should just unite and not denounce each other and not let people divide us. But Seth Dillon was saying, actually, a lot of these people, we have to kind of police ourselves like William F. Buckley did back then in the National Review by saying, we don't want neo-Nazis on our side. So there's a lot of debates going on, Twitter and all those places about this. And some of the names coming up that should be denounced, like you draw a line and denounce Candace Owens. She's going off about how Charlie Kirk was really assassinated by the Jews, probably, and Erica Kirk and Donald Trump were in on it, and she's just saying all kinds of crazy conspiracy stuff. But also Nick Fuentes, a lot of people bring him up. And so I thought it'd be interesting. I've actually never watched a show of Nick Fuentes. I see his disciples, the Groypers, all over online, and they're just like really uncharitable, angry people that are partly, I think it's a troll and like just trying to be edgy and all that. But they just go around harassing people and just, while also claiming to be really, really Catholic and we're the best Catholics out there and we need to take over the country for Catholicism and for white people. And they kind of use Catholicism as a identity category that is sort of a foundation to build on, rather than, letting Christ, and his spirit of charity, the Holy Spirit, just transform you into a person that, follow the new law of love for love of God and love of your neighbors, yourself, love of your enemies. Not focusing on that and letting it transform you and transform society, but more defending it as an identity category. So I think that's pretty toxic and lame. And as a Catholic, I thought it'd be interesting a couple, maybe months ago. I don't know. I did a similar thing with Father James Maudsley. I'd never sat down and listened to him. And you all liked that. Well, actually, none of you, the traditionalists that stumbled across it, all hated it, but you gave me a lot of views at least. So that was cool. And one of you even made up a conspiracy theory about it, that I am funded by some Jewish group. Like, I literally just started this thing in my spare room, but I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, I think if you've got your own Jewish conspiracy, you kind of made it, right? So I thought I'd do a similar thing with Nick Fuentes and just really dive into what is this guy about? Like, what kind of things does he say? I kind of have an idea pretty much, but I just wanted to like interact with it. I'm not going to watch a whole show of his. I think I've never done that and I don't really plan on doing that. But found a couple clips there's like a Fuentes clips thing on Twitter that I found. And also I found an old one. I was going to start with this older one where it just builds up of basically what he's been saying over the years, his persona, how he built it up, and then look at just things from this month, from October. What kind of stuff's he been saying this month? So this is Fuentes. He's on the left. Looks like when he first started. So it's kind of taken you through. It's not very long, couple minutes, I think, but kind of the stuff he says and he's been saying over the years on all kinds of things. So yeah, let's take a quick look at that.
We're not ideological. These are the things we want. And we're going to call out people that are betraying those things. We're going to call out the phonies that pretend to represent those things. We're like, hey, We want a Christian government. We want a Christian government. We want a majority white country. We want nationalism. We're okay with authoritarianism. We're not ideological.
Okay, pretty interesting. Starting off saying, here's what we want. We want just basically white Christian authoritarian government. Yeah, okay.
We're going to call out people that are betraying those things. We're going to call out the phonies that pretend to represent those things. We're like the immovable right-wing force in politics. And that's why we need dictatorship. That's unironically why we need to get rid of all that. We need to take control of the media or take control of the government and force the people to believe what we believe, or force them to play by our rules and reshape the society. This is why it's Christian nationalism. We need a government of Christians. Tell me why we need people in government that don't serve Jesus Christ. Is that the argument? Well, here, Nick, here's why we need Jewish people in government that don't serve Jesus. Sorry, you're never going to win that argument. And Jewish people can be here, but they can't make our laws. We have got to talk about the fundamentals of our worldview and what it would look like to build a society based on our distinct worldview. It looks like a society where women don't have the right to vote. And it looks like a society where boys and girls get married as teenagers and start having kids, and they don't use birth control.
His hands are kind of hilarious to me. He's got these floppy, here's what we got to do, guys. Yeah. So basically what he's saying is, women can't vote. The Jews can't vote or be part of the government at all. And, authoritarianism, we're going to force our views down on everybody. All right. This is kind of like, I don't know if you guys know LARPy, that term, like live action role play. It's when like teenage guys just go off on these rants like this. It's like, okay, how many people think like you? Like 2 or 3%? You're going to make that happen? You're going to go out there and all the women are going to vote for this, or what? They're not going to vote for it, but you're going to take over the military somehow. That's like probably half minority. Like what's your plan here? Like, but it seems like trying to be edgy in a way that's just so unreasonable. It's almost just for entertainment. It's like, this is just ridiculous.
And they don't use contraceptives, and they have big families and a high birth rate.
Yeah, big families and no birth control. Teenagers just doing it and making babies. Like, all right, this guy, he's still not married, and he's like pushing 30 now. He's probably early 20s there, but I'm not trying to say he's gay. That's the rumor. I guess there's another YouTuber, Destiny, who says that they have had sex, and there's been times where he's doing his live stream and all of a sudden gay porn will come up. I think he's blamed that on the Jews, though, if I'm not mistaken, that it was some Jewish spy that made the gay porn pop up on his computer. Hey, what do I know? Could be right.
Right? And it looks like women wearing veils at church, and it looks like women not being in the workforce. So that means that banning gay marriage is back on the menu. Banning sodomy is back on the menu. Banning contraceptives is back on the menu. And basically, we're having something like Taliban rule in America in a good way. We're having something like a Catholic Taliban rule.
Yeah, I think he just gets off on this idea of like finding the most extreme position you could possibly take. Like, the Taliban doesn't let women get education, and they have to wear veils, and they have to, well, just like the Taliban, the girls are all going to wear veils, and they're going to stay home, and they can't work. And that's going to be, it's just like, I don't really believe that he believes this. Maybe he does, but he's like from Chicago, I think. And it just seems a little like edgy just for the sake of being edgy. I mean, the Taliban goes around like assassinating people of other religions and anybody that goes against them. So it's totally authoritarian, which I guess he said he likes. But
in America, no, man, if Antifa were marching down the streets and they were waving the banner of Benito Mussolini or Francisco Franco, I'd be joining them. Oh,
he looked like he was 12 there, so that might have been an older clip.
Yeah? Well, fuck the UN and the internet and democracy, okay? What do you think about that?
Tough.
You know what democracy has given us? Obesity, low rates of literacy. It's given us divorce, abortion, gay marriage.
Democracy has given us low literacy and obesity. I don't know. See, I feel like he doesn't connect dots here, really. He's just throwing random extreme statements at the wall and being like, hey, do these make my audience's dopamine bounce around their head? Cool.
Liberalism, pornography, that's what democracy has given us. Ghettos and crime and political correctness, diversity. Yeah. Track record of democracy, not so good. Catholic autocracy, pretty strong record. Catholic monarchy and just war and crusades and inquisitions, pretty good stuff.
I mean, I'm a Catholic. I like the Catholic Church, love the Catholic Church. I love the developed doctrine where it's gotten, where we respect religious freedom and, the common good and all of that. And I think the autocracies of the Middle Ages that he's talking about that had like inquisitions against people who, do you believe or are you a heretic? And they burned people at the stake and they tortured them to see if they were really loyal to the church and all of that. I don't think that was as solid. I think that's actually, there's a lot of evidence that that's what led to the Reformation and the Enlightenment. A lot of it was pushback against just a really, restrictive society that was pretty brutal on people. So, okay, I agree to disagree here. You're also kind of disagreeing with the church, though, and the developed doctrine. So, kind of hard to like hold this thing as like build my foundation and extreme identity on this thing when that thing is no longer here. It's now over here, and you don't accept the version over here that's actually real. You accept this fantasy LARP middle-age version. But yeah, cool.
Pretty good stuff. You got to recognize the fact that this is a godless country. I hate it. It's immoral, it's wrong, it's heinous, it's evil, but this is an evil country. And I hate to burst anybody's bubble, but there is simply no evidence that there is a silent majority. There is no evidence of this. There are too many non-white people in the country, frankly, for that to be the case. The country's 40% non-white, and like 80% of them are liberal, okay? And out of the white people, it's like 60-40. You do the math on that. There's not enough of us, okay? Now, that's not a total black pill because this isn't a democracy, and we don't want it to be. So it's not the end.
So there's a lot of minorities here, but it's not the end of the world because we're not a democracy, so we can just conquer them. Yeah, okay. Silly. Also, screw you for just casually saying there's too many minorities here. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. I'm on the right. I consider myself a very conservative person, but this is the kind of, I used to like get annoyed when people on the left would be like, there's all these like Nazis and people like that on your side. I would just laugh too, because I'd just be like, okay, have you ever actually hung out with conservatives? But this is why we have to police it, because we can't really laugh if we're actually going to allow people like this to hang around. Yeah. Then if they say that, I can't in good conscience just laugh it off anymore. I got to be like, okay, well, we do have that guy in the corner saying his thing about there's too many black people around.
There are other ways, and I can elaborate on that later if people want me to, but that's a whole other discussion, really. But the point is, when you look at these things like abortion, it's popular. People like abortion, hate it, but it's true. And you could thank the Jewish media for that. Abortion's popular. Sodomy's popular. Being gay is popular. Being a feminist is popular. Sex out of wedlock is popular. Contraceptives that's all popular. That's not to say it's good.
This is the thing you get so often from people like this. They'll be like, the Jewish media has influenced all these people to, like sex outside of wedlock and immorality. It's like, if you actually are a Catholic, you understand basic Christianity, that's not the Jewish media. That's the human corrupt heart. That you look at any era, man, things have always been the same. If you read history, you just see like, oh, that's exactly how it is now. Everybody always wants to say like, oh, things have gotten really terrible. We've always been very immoral. every era, even the most, uptight era of medieval ages, you find like, oh, there's a lot of sexual things going on to the surface. Maybe the Jews were forced them to do that too. Or like Saudi Arabia, they seem really uptight, and then you see there's all these crazy sex parties under the, apparently. So, no, I have not been to any Saudi Arabian sex parties. I don't have personal knowledge, just saying. Read a couple articles suggesting that, but so yeah, just I always find that silly when people are like, yeah, they can put all that negative human instincts and characteristics. Just why don't we just assign all of that on the Jews?
It's not to say I like that. Popular means the people support it, which they do. And it sucks, and it is what it is, but that's why we need dictatorship. That's unironically why we need to get rid of all that. We need to take control of the media or take control of the government and force the people to believe what we believe, or force them to play by our rules and reshape the society. The reason I wouldn't call myself a white nationalist, it's not because I don't see the necessity for white people to have a homeland and for white people to have a country. It's because I think that kind of terminology is used almost exclusively by the left to defame. And I think the terminology and the labels that we use, I don't think we can look at them outside of the context of their connotations in America. Whereas maybe it might be descriptive to call somebody a white nationalist. I think it sort of loses something when an average person hears that, and it's almost synonymous with Nazi or villain or whatever. And so I would say I'm a white person. I'm conscious of my white identity, conscious of nationalism. But I think in a way it's almost redundant to say that you're a white nationalist. We know that the word nation almost implicitly talks about ethnicity and biology. If you go back to the history of the word, a nation is not synonymous with country or state. Nation itself means a people. So I think if I call myself a nationalist, it's almost implicit in that word that it's, America does have a heritage.
The person he's talking to there is Richard Spencer, who was the former Nick Fuentes. So like 10 years ago when people were talking about the alt-right, it was not nearly as popular as this Groyper thing is. But the guy who was leading back then was this guy, Richard Spencer. So now who knows what that guy's up to. But this is looks like probably 10 years ago. Maybe Spencer kind of mentored Fuentes to take over the mantle
of being a European country. So that a little bit about the wording, because I know a lot of people would be confused by that, but that's really how I see myself. This is why it's Christian nationalism. We need a government of Christians. We need a conservative movement, a nationalist movement led by Christians that obey the Bible and obey God and serve Jesus Christ. Tell me why we need people in government that don't serve Jesus Christ. Is that the argument? Well, here, Nick, here's why we need Jewish people in government that don't serve Jesus. Sorry, you're never going to win that argument. You're never going to convince me that we need people in government that don't serve Jesus Christ, the Son of God. You'll never convince me of that. Insofar as there's one God and he has one Son and there is one way to salvation and one way to the truth, then that's the way that the people running our society and writing the laws need to be, and no other way.
Here's the problem, buddy, is, okay, yeah, if God taps all of us on the shoulder and says, guess what, David? Here's exactly what the truth is. There's this church is the right church. There's only one way to salvation. Here it is. Here are all the metaphysical truths. But that's not really how it works for me. I was an atheist for a while, then I was like open to religion, then I was Protestant, and then I'm Catholic. I was like a trad Catholic for a little while. Now I'm like mainstream. A lot of people just, life doesn't make sense to them. They're trying to figure it out. They need some freedom to believe something differently than you, because the amount of wars that have happened, that's kind of what happened with the wars of religion in Europe. Peace of Westphalia, I believe, was when finally they're like, okay, we've just been killing each other for a long time because we're like, Exactly. Both of them did that. But on either side, we're like, there's only one truth and we have it. No, we have it. And then kill each other for another couple decades. I believe there's one truth, and it's found in, the Catholic Church, and it's Jesus Christ. And I believe all that. But I don't think it's so obvious that I have to go around like killing everybody and dominating them, because life's kind of confusing, let's be honest. So if only things were so simple, Mr. Fuentes.
And that's not hateful, and that's not prejudice. If anything, it's the opposite. You can only love your country if you want to have people running it that love God and love this world and love people. And the only people that are like that are, the only people as Christians we know that can be like that are fellow Christians. That's it. So this Judeo-Christian thing's got to stop. We don't live in a Judeo-Christian country, or at least if we do, we no longer want to live in that country. We want to live in a Christian country. We want to live in a Christian country with Christian rulers and Christian legislators and Christian judges and Christian law and Christians. And Jewish people can be here, but they can't make our laws. If I take 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies and Cookie Monster has 15 ovens, working 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years, how long does it take Cookie Monster to make 6 million batches of cookies? The math doesn't quite seem to add up there. I don't think you'd result in 6 million, maybe 200 to 300,000 cookies. Well, not with the...
That's his thing about like the Holocaust. He has this like baking cookies thing. I've seen his people go around like, okay, these gas ovens, like if you're trying to bake cookies in ovens, could you do it in that time period? It's like, so the 300,000 he's saying is what the SSPX guy, Bishop Williamson, he would always say, oh, at most 300,000 Jews were killed. And they have these theories about, oh, the doors were too, they were wooden, the Zyklon gas would escape that. And all this stuff has been addressed a million times. But most of the Jews who were killed in the Holocaust they were killed in so many different ways. So a lot of them died in work camps from exhaustion, and a lot of them were found in unmarked graves. I think almost maybe the biggest amount were just shot and thrown in graves. And they don't have, when the people like this are like, why don't the numbers go up to 6 million? Like it was this exact count that was happening in 1,000 different places that the Nazis were killing people, that each of them, had this counting system. Like, no, sometimes they just took a bunch of Jewish people and had them dig a hole and shot them. That was more common than the gas chambers, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, regardless, like, you don't know anything. And he's just like smirking about it. Like, it's only 300,000. It's like, even if your ridiculous, assertions that nobody accepts are true, you still don't joke around like that about these painful things that all these people had to go through. Little kids being shot in the face.
Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, I had to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal.
Would you say
Jim Crow, who cares? Oh, that's a good take, right? Republicans, we want that. We want
that me having sex with my dog is the same thing as me having sex with a black man?
No. But they would both be degenerate. Oh, I'm against race mixing. I would never do that. Just use whatever's at my disposal. So if
he looks hilarious right there. He looks like Ted Koppel or something, like some 1970s talk show host.
Marjorie Greene came to the conference, I'm not going to say no, because then everybody's talking about AFPAC 3, and they're talking about Russia, and they're talking about Hitler, and they're talking about white identity. So we instrumentalized her for that purpose, and it worked. What
you're talking about is Marjorie Taylor Greene came to their America First. He's trying to claim the term America First and MAGA and things like that, and kind of take it away from Trump and own it. Do a pretty good job of it. I mean, a lot of the stuff online, America First, is more associated with him now than with Trump. But Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, was confused. She thought it was a MAGA thing, maybe, and so she went to his conference and got a lot of blowback because, like he said, oh, good, now we get to spread white identity and the good news of Hitler and, Russia is better than Ukraine for whatever reason. But yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually just this week was also kind of talking about I think she's still kind of leading into this, flirting with this group. Even though I think it was years ago that this happened, but she was talking about how Israel can't get rid of me. And yeah, just the obsession with the Jews at all times is pretty wild.
How we were looking for. Nevertheless, it's still a problem. Like, women do not belong in politics. We can recognize that we're in a situation where we have to work with what we have politically, and then by the same token, like, never accept for one solitary moment that we would ever have any women in politics. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, I all along never accepted Marjorie Greene as a congresswoman, or Lauren Boebert for that matter, or any of them. I am also smart enough to recognize that me not accepting them does not make them not congresswomen, or does not make them not advantageous or beneficial in some way. And that's the approach that people need to have. That's why I say trust the plan a lot. Like, you need to afford me a little bit of leeway so that I can maneuver, while understanding that fundamentally there's no compromise.
But okay, so there's that stuff. There's his old stuff. Now let's look at what was he up to these days, really. So he's matured now. Now he's almost 30. I just took some off that thing from October. So these are all just, I don't know, they had like 20 clips. I just picked a few that looked interesting. So let's see what he's up to. What's he talking about these days?
Program for America. One's in the chat if you agree. We're going to take all these Shapiros, the Weinsteins, the Epsteins, and we're going to take the Zorans, the Hassans, and the Ilhans. We're going to get them all together. We're going to put them on a ship, and we're going to send them back to the fucking Middle East. Send them back to the desert. You can have them.
So kind of like just get rid of all the Jews and the Muslims. Oh, it's the level of nuance and sophistication in his opinions. Still, he's older now. Had his sex scandals and all those things, but he seems like pretty consistent. Like, get rid of anybody who's not white and Christian.
Okay. Let's build the fleet. Let's build the ark. Let's build a rocket ship or a spaceship. Let's get all the towel heads on one side. We'll get all the tiny hats on the other. We're going to put them on a big luxury cruise ship or a giant Boeing 737 MAX, and we can send them all right back to the Middle East. And we'll be all day long. They'll be going to Iraq. They'll be going to Israel. They'll be going to Turkey. They can all go back. Let's just bring them all back. Thank you. It was a good time. We had a great time together, but I think it's time for you to leave. We should have, who should be running New York? The Irish, the Italians, the English, the Germans, the Dutch. That's who should be running New York. Not Jews, not Muslims, not Chinese people, not Hispanics. It should be whites. I want New York to be white.
This is funny because when the Irish and the Italian and the German Catholics and the Polish, all these white Catholic groups came over, they were treated like we were not white Christians. I mean, my people are Swedish. I'm a convert. 20 years ago I converted to Catholicism. But my ancestry is Swedish and German. But when the ethnic Catholics like Irish and Italians came over, they were not like he's trying to make it seem like it was this American white stock and that we need to get back to that. That was not how it was looked at all. There were groups that would try to get rid of Catholics. Catholics weren't even allowed to have churches in a lot of states. I think New York might have allowed Jewish temples, synagogues. I mean, before they allowed Catholic churches. I know here in the South where I live, it was illegal for Catholics to hold office for quite a long time. So his history's a little shaky here.
I want LA to be white. Miami can be Hispanic. We'll give you Miami. Miami can be Hispanic. It's like a Caribbean nation at that point, you know? And the blacks can have Atlanta. Okay?
This reminds me of like when like a bunch of high schoolers get drunk or something and they're just sitting around, they're just like riffing, and before, somebody might record it or whatever, you just say a bunch of nonsense trying to be edgy and funny or something. You don't really believe any of it, but it's like he's saying a bunch of stuff that just, what are you talking about? We're just going to like give Atlanta to only black people. And so it's like, I feel like he has a little plausible deniability sometimes because he says, oh, I was joking. And so is he joking? Because he's saying it in kind of this ironic way. But his consistent message of what he says, like if you look at, okay, there's jokes in there kind of, but his consistent message is that this should be a white Christian nation. So it's like, yeah, kind of tongue in cheek, but I think he means it too. All right, I'm going to go to the next one. Okay. I got the gist of that last one, so let's go to a new one.
Than $20. Mixed people have lower rates of disease than monoracials. They're more proportional and symmetrical. They're rated more attractive on average. They're slightly taller. They're often smarter. They even have longer lifespans. That's unicker. Shout out your wetback beater dad.
Rated more attractive according to who? Who is rating them more attractive?
So I guess somebody's saying mixed race people are better in these different ways than monoracial, and he's just like, oh, absolutely not. So interesting.
What are you talking about? Maybe we just have different taste, but that's the first I've ever heard that one. That's totally insane. They're often smarter on what planet? What are you talking? Yeah, they're smarter than the average black person. Okay. Yeah, mixed race people. Yeah, they're smarter than black people. When you mix whites and blacks, yeah, they're smarter than the average black person.
All right, so yeah, he thinks he's being funny here. Here's my thing though. Even if you leave aside any kind of like, I know they try to like bring up all these race IQ stuff and education levels and all this to show that, okay, yeah, well, Asians and whites on average are okay. Let's say that's all granted. As a Christian, by the way, I don't think that's all granted, but as a Christian, if it were in your neighborhood, let's say one of the families had lower education than you, maybe they had less money than you, they're struggling with some things. Is this a Christian way of talking about it? Where, you have charity for all, and if you're just like, well, the Hendersons, they're all morons and they're retards, and like if you're saying something that any of them could stumble upon, it just seems like you're not a person of goodwill towards others. So even the most basic level of Christian charity, that Jesus said that we'd know who belongs to him based on how we love one another. I think you can't really claim that people in this group are followers of Christ, that they're Christians. Like he was saying that we need, Christians to rule because they're the only people that know how to love. There are people that are, displaying God's love at much higher degrees than these people. And even if they like to call themselves Christian in some sense of identity.
Then what conclusions can we draw from that? They're smarter. That's really funny. They have longer lifespans. I don't think that's true at all. But thanks for the laugh. Hey, look, we love them all. We love everybody. But it's like, come on now. Let's just be honest.
Oh, yeah. This is something I noticed when I see clips of him now. He'll do this thing. Maybe like his priest or bishop talked to him or something and told him kind of what I just told him. Because he'll add in like, get all the Jews out of this country and the blacks are retards, but we love everybody though. We love everybody. It's like, I don't think he quite understands what willing the good of the other and acting, for common good and all of that in charities, what that really means in practice. He just throws in this, but we love everybody because we're Christian. He's like the worst possible Christian. So I don't even know if I would say there's any fruits of Christianity that I've ever seen this guy display, other than occasionally being like, you can't really hate people of other races. We just think they're, stupid criminals that should be executed or deported, and they're, everything wrong in your life can be blamed on them. But we love them. We just love them.
I'm faithful to Christ. You are faithful to your denomination. Think about it.
Yeah, that's idiotic. Thank you,
Chris
God.
NRS.
Oh, I never heard that before. If I call myself Christ follower instead of Christian, that means something. Yeah, dude, just keep splitting the denominations over and over and over. Totally ridiculous.
Chris NRS.
Yeah, the Catholic Church is the church Christ founded, the church that administers the sacraments. The authority for which they have to administer them comes from Christ himself. We have to move beyond the third grade here, okay, Protestants? I follow Christ. You follow your denomination. Denomination of what, dude? It's about discerning revelation.
All right, we'll spare you the theology lesson from this guy. All right. Well, actually, next one actually looks like it's about his views on his Catholic spiritual life or something.
Howard says, I like your jacket. You look good. Random question. Do you have a favorite feast day? Yeah, dude, I'm a cradle Catholic. No, I don't have a fucking favorite feast day, Mig. N-word. Okay, we're in the new era, so we're not just blasting them all over, but do you have a favorite Catholic?
I like how he thinks if he just says, send all the blacks and Jews out of this country, but he doesn't say the N-word, that he can revive his his image in the media or something. Like, people are gonna think that matters. So I guess, yeah, they're asking him what his favorite Catholic feast day is, and he's like, what I find actually kind of hilarious is whenever I've seen these clips, he is just the biggest a-hole to his own followers. Like, one of them said, I'm nearly suicidal, but this Groyper, Jew-hating community has made me not kill myself. And he was pretty much just like, you are a loser. He didn't say you should kill yourself, but he's like, get your stuff together because nobody cares about you. You're just pathetic. He went on this long rant against the guy who says, I'm suicidal and you're the only thing keeping me together. It was like, but he does this all the time where somebody asks him hey, what's your favorite this? And he's like, I hate you so much. I don't know, maybe it's part of the fun of his show or something, but somebody asks him, what's your favorite Catholic feast day? And he's like, I was raised Catholic. I don't actually care about all this stuff. I don't know what he's saying. Keep going.
Feast day? Yeah. My favorite feast, dude, I'm a cradle Catholic. You think we have favorite feast days? I'm one of the cradle Catholics that actually goes to Mass and believes in the Eucharist. Do you think we have a feast day? You're asking a lot from me here. Yeah, I don't collect the trading cards. I'm just here for the salvation. I'm just here for the sacraments, not the trading cards. I know that's blasphemous. It's always do you have the necklaces?
The trading cards, it's kind of funny. There's these saint cards that a lot of the really religious, usually converts are the most religious is what he's getting at. They're the trads usually are these converts who are often they were fundamentalist Protestants and they come over and then they're looking for the most pure form of Christianity. So they skip over modern Catholicism and go back to some kind of medieval stuff. And a lot of people like that will collect these prayer cards. I think a lot of those practices are nice. I'm a convert. I was trad for a little bit, and I think I still like some of the following different saints. I mean, having a favorite feast day is, a lot of the Catholics I know in my church are cradle Catholics, and they have favorite feast days, and I mean celebrate. They homeschool their kids and will celebrate feast days and stuff. So I think he's I don't know, just being a little harsh on this caller.
One time I lost something and someone said, you should pray to the patron saint of lost items.
Bro, that's Saint Anthony. That's a very common. Okay.
It's like, dude, okay, so what is this? Pokemon? Gotta catch them all. People are sending me literally the trading cards. It's like, okay, so what do we do? Like, they expect me to show up. All right, everybody, I'm ready for my, double XP weekend at Super Trad High Latin Mass. I've got 15 necklaces, a stack of trading cards. I got there 3 hours early to say the rosary 10,000 times. I know this is blasphemous, but like, come on, guys.
Okay.
Vanessa Howard says, I like.
Okay. Some of that's actually kind of funny because there's so many of the people he's bashing are, again, like in his audience, like those super duper trad people who are like, they're just trying to find the most extreme way to live and rebel against everything around them. So they're like, I'm going to be medieval LARPy Latin Mass trad, and I'm going to hate the Jews as much, whatever. But he's like totally blasting his own crowd there. I mean, a lot of the people, like Tim Gordon kind of people, or I don't know, avoiding Babylon, that are just like, they surround themselves with every little trinket, and they love him, and he's just bashing them. It's kind of hilarious. All right, and I guess we reached the last clip already. I mean, this is kind of long, right? I make these long ass videos. So next up, we got this. I guess he's talking about, somebody out there is gonna go crazy and kill a bunch of people, but it probably won't be my fault, even though I'm just like riling people up against the Jews all day and against all these people. If somebody does something, it's probably a false flag, which you don't know. That's like when there's an attack and then the government did it to make it look, to prove some point or to get people to think a certain way about what's going on in the world. So I think he's kind of like doing a little CYA, covering his ass a little bit, just in case something crazy goes on. A lot of these kind of Groyper types are thinking that maybe the Jews killed Charlie Kirk. It wasn't this like left-wing, Antifa type. They're like, that's no longer red meat enough for them. So now they're going to like, no, it was like this plain Candace Owens who's like, trying to take over for Fuentes. They're kind of competing. They're always bashing each other to try to like get their audiences to pick one or the other. But she says like some plane landed from Egypt and took off right after the shooting of Charlie Kirk. So that must mean like, I don't know. I didn't hear her whole theory, but she's pretty certain it was the Jews. But he's like, I think he's a little worried based on what it sounds like, that maybe some of this is gonna actually have some real world consequences where some people might get killed, or I don't know.
Are able to talk very openly about Jews and Israel and the Holocaust, and in a very negative way. People are abusing that right now.
If you're going to question the Holocaust and talk negatively about the Jews, do it responsibly. Be responsible.
They're abusing the very liberal climate that we have. They're abusing the opening that has been afforded to us by doing stuff like this. And some of them are crazy and some of them are not. And some of them maybe are being put up to it and some of them are certainly not. But there are crazy people that are taking the crazy low IQ types. They're taking this kind of rhetoric and they're going on Twitter and saying, we're going to kill them. We're going to kill you. We're going to. And I tell you how the story ends because I lived through it the first time. Here's how the story ends. They're going to take every example of this and they're going to blow it up and put it in front of the media. And you might not think that's a big deal because you might say, well, we're past that. But I'll tell you what happens next. There's going to be a false flag. Someone's going to get shot. Someone's going to get hurt. I pray to God it doesn't happen. I don't want that to happen, but I think it will. I think some psycho is going to snap. Some psycho is going to be groomed and made to snap.
Groomed and made to snap. Let me just think about that. Because, like, dude, what you're saying is the Holocaust didn't really happen. The Jews orchestrated this whole myth so that they can take over the world and they just rule everything bad in your life. Basically, it's the Jews' fault. Put them all on a plane, get them out of here, get this authoritarian country. There's another video where he says, we're going to like basically have to put all of them to death. The Jewish cabal that's behind a lot of this stuff after we take over. But you say all that, and then you say, oh, but what if somebody gets groomed and, radicalized and ends up doing something bad and hurting somebody? It's like, so he's at least somewhat aware that that's a possibility that could happen. But like, that's your whole thing. That's your whole thing, is just whipping people up and getting them really paranoid about different ethnic groups, different religious groups. And we got to go. I don't think I've heard him say round people up and kill them, but definitely round people up, deport them, send the military into places, authoritarian rule, don't let certain people speak, don't let certain people vote. I'm just going off of even just what we've listened to here. So the idea that he can then say, be responsible with your making fun of the Holocaust and Jews, be responsible. And because what if somebody takes it so seriously and goes and hurts somebody? It's like, brother, that would all be on your plate. You are responsible. You're the one whipping this all up. And it's all just trash too. It's like, there's all these people who really buy into this. A lot of these trad Catholics I see, and they're like, they now believe that the Holocaust didn't happen. They now believe that 9/11 was a thing that the Jews did because these 5 teenagers that worked at a moving company, like somebody saw one of them laugh and they had box cutters, even though they worked at a moving company, which makes kind of sense. But they have all these theories about like everything that's happened and tracing it all back to the Jews. And they believe it all. Well, what do you think, man? Like, stuff's going to happen if you convince somebody that everything wrong in their life is a certain group of people, the reason they're addicted to pornography, the reason there's promiscuity in the world, and all this stuff. So, sorry, buddy. Something happens. It's a little late to backtrack.
Maybe it'll just be a straight up false flag, but something will happen. It will implicate an anti-Semite. And that anti-Semite, you're going to go on his timeline and you're going to see he's following he's going to be following Candace, Tucker, me, Dan Bilzerian, Jake Shields. And his account is going to be filled with cheerleading for us and hatred for them. And it's going to be just as it was before. They're going to...
By the way, the fact that Dan Bilzerian and Jake Shields and Nick Fuentes, who are absolute psychos, just like openly like saying, I mean, the other ones are even crazier than him, that Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson, who used to be such normal, smart, they were seen as like I remember growing up with Tucker Carlson being like this very normie conservative who was on Crossfire on CNN, and he was a little bow tie and he's like country club guy. I thought I was to the right of him. And what in the hell happened to that guy? Like, did he just have no conscience? And so he's like, oh, I can make a lot of money, like going on this Holocaust denial team, like teaming up with like jihadists and Nazis to like try to take down American, decent politics and civility, or like what like I guess he never had he's been a sociopath maybe the whole time. And Candace Owens always seemed a little bit like a grifter, but she seemed like I was hopeful maybe she could be kind of like brought along into normie conservatism. But man, it's kind of a weird development. It's like Matt Walsh. I mean, I think that's why people are worried about Matt Walsh is shoot, if that could happen to Candace and Tucker especially. I mean, you could have Matt Walsh pretty soon, like shaving his beard off and just doing a little Hitler mustache and just doing Zig Heils and, joining the Aryan Brotherhood or something. And it just seems crazy that somebody could make that kind of switch. But I mean, that's what time it is, I guess. People are, if you get audience captured, part of this too is Qatar is like dumping all this money to try to turn MAGA into like more anti-Israel. So they've just dumped cash into that. Like they're spending way more than people blame Israel. Ask Grok or whoever who spends more money trying to influence American politics, Israel or Qatar. Qatar is a tiny country too. I think it's got like 300,000 people. So yeah, this is something to worry about. If you can pull a Tucker Carlson and a Candace Owens and maybe a Matt Walsh, you can pull a lot of people. This is something we gotta worry about. And there's no sitting on side like, well, I don't want any enemies to my right. Like, they're nut jobs. Do you listen to them? Do you have any women in your life that you'd like to be able to vote or to like have a job that you say they shouldn't be able to work? And do you think, do you know any people who aren't totally solid on their faith at the moment? You don't want them to go through an inquisition. I mean, this is silly stuff, man. They're just saying edgelord kind of, they're just trying to be as edgy as possible. But if they keep ramping things up, they're going to move the area of what's acceptable and what's normal to talk about into these, did the Holocaust happen? Are Jews, Jewish cabals ruling the world and we should ship them all out to the Middle East? It's ridiculous stuff. And I think it could undermine just the way, part of the Seth Dillon's argument is just the way that the woke undermined the left and made them lose a bunch, and even to like Donald Trump, who's kind of a wild guy, but he even won over because people are tired of the left woke stuff. If the right starts to be associated with people like this, guess what? We're going to lose for a long time. It's not going to be that women and black people and Hispanics are going to suddenly become fans of his and now, that wins. I wouldn't even want that to win. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, between like this guy and Gavin Newsom, man, I'd probably vote Gavin Newsom, even though I disagree with him on every issue, because it's like, he's just an evil bastard. And he's using my religion and my, the skin suit of conservatism that while doing everything the opposite of what I would think conservatism is. So yeah, like he's an evil dude. Matt Walsh, I know you're a big fan of my channel. Just listen, man. Don't wink at this guy and don't pretend like you don't know what everybody's saying, where you're like, no enemies to the right. And then you just pretend like you can just be friends with him and Ben Shapiro at the same time. Your friend Ben Shapiro probably has done a lot for you over the years. You guys seem tight. So unless you really want him shipped off, to Israel and all that, yeah, every conservative right now, this is the John Birch Society moment where William F. Buckley, basically drew the line in the sand. What's everybody going to do? Hopefully this can be that kind of a moment with Seth Dillon's piece, and even more so with my brilliant commentary here, which will be probably seen by billions of people, and or at least dozens. So yeah, I think it's time we make a call. And guys like this, pathetic. What is he even talking about with his floppy hands and his, just like obviously ridiculous takes on everything? It's trash. And if you're a Christian, charity above all, you'll be known by how you love one another. And that does not just include Christians. It means your neighbor and even your enemy. So make the right choice.